Hey everybody, David here, and today I want to talk about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 3, the Power Broker. So we are back with a third episode. This is really exciting. I thought this episode was really great. Let's start talking about it. I'm going to structure this review a little bit differently than the last two. The last two, I'm like always recapping it, and I'm like, if you guys seen the episode already, hopefully you did because this is spoilery. I'm just gonna talk about the moments that stuck out to me the most instead of recapping the whole episode because number one, I don't think I'm great at recapping anyways, and number two, it's just better to talk about the moments that stuck out to me, and that way we can just talk about it. So let's get right into it. Let's get into John Walker and Lamar Huskins at first. They were in this episode. Very briefly, they had like two scenes, if I remember correctly, and I just watched the episode. They were in two scenes, and we start seeing a little bit of John Walker's asshole side start popping out a lot more in this episode, which for people who thought he didn't seem too bad of a guy. I felt the last scene in last week's episode kind of showed us, no, there's an asshole in there. He's just slowly coming out. And this episode, we start seeing that a little bit more. And now that maybe even in the last scene that we see him in this episode, maybe he's even willing to break the law, the government that he works for. He's willing to cross some lines in order to get what he wants. And he is determined to get what he wants. Lamar Huskins, though, he seems like the guy that's like trying to keep him in check. So I think Lamar Huskins will turn out to be a good guy. But I think John Walker, he's gonna be corrupted. I think he's gonna go a little too far where I don't think Battlestar will be able to hold him back on. We got a little bit more of Carly Morgantho in this episode, the part of the Flag Smashers. And we get a little bit more sympathy with her, a little bit more. Because it looked like last week, I was starting to think maybe she's not as bad as we think. And right in the beginning of this episode, we see her visiting, I guess, her mother, right? And who's dying. And that kind of makes us feel for her a little bit, makes us feel, okay, this is making me feel sympathetic for her. She's clearly losing someone she loves because of all this crap that's going on. She's still having to hide like a fugitive. Maybe the Flag Smashers aren't that bad until one of the last things in the episode we see she blows up a building with people still inside. And the guy even asks her, the guy that was with her, there were people in that building. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, well, that's the only way they'll get the message if people are in that building. And that's where I'm like, yeah, sympathy out the window. I maybe you're not as good as I was hoping you would be. I don't know, unless there's something about those people that we didn't know about, but killing people is wrong either way. So, yeah, Carly, I don't know, man. I don't know where they're taking you with this, but you just lost some sympathy points right there at the end. So we'll have to see about that. Now let's get into the meat of this episode. The meat of the episode definitely involved Bucky and Sam and Zemo. That's right. In the last week's episode, we got teased that they were going to go get Zemo. They were going to need his help on some things. And Bucky and Sam are at the prison. Bucky decides to go and talk to him himself, and Zemo starts using the words, right? He starts saying the secret words that would control the Winter Soldier or make him go into like assassin mode. But he realizes that's not working. And that was really cool. I really like that scene. Zemo kind of had like a Hannibal Lecter kind of vibe to him in that moment. Where he's the guy, like in Silence of the Lambs, Clarice would come and see Hannibal Lecter while he was in prison to get some information. It was a creepy scene. It was a little bit like that here. But then when they cut and make us think that Bucky didn't get him out and that they were him and Sam were going to break him out together, but Sam's already like against the idea. But then uh, Bucky starts reciting this way of how they could do it, right? And while he's talking about it, they're showing Zemo, they're showing the exact thing that already happened, that Bucky gave a message to someone in the prison to start fighting. And that's what he was saying. What if we get two people to start fighting in the prison and do this, and they'll have to do that to let Zemo out. And we're seeing it all play out. And right there, I'm like, oh shit, Bucky already did it. he already busted Zemo out. And yes, Zemo comes into the place where the warehouse, I guess, where they're hiding at. And Sam is not happy about this at all. Which was what you'd expect. But I really like that, like, they were kind of making you think that they were going to have to break him out of prison, but then it turns out, no, Bucky already did the job. And they're already on their way to find information, because Zemo does want to stop these super soldier serum from getting out there. You know, he doesn't want more super soldiers. I mean, he even killed some of those super soldiers that were in the tubes in Captain America Civil War. So it's like, he doesn't want more super powered beings out here in the world. So yeah, of course he's going to team up with Sam and Bucky. And so they go off to this place where I guess pirates in long time ago infested. And now it's a little bit, it's lawful, but corrupt. And they go to this place, meet this woman. Bucky has to get back into Winter Soldier mode. And that was really cool, because it's like, it did make me wonder if Bucky was going to lose control. Because Zemo was like really, he told Bucky, hey, you gotta act like your old self, so get ready for it. And Sam, even at one point when that fight happens in the bar, Sam is even like, are you okay? And Bucky's like, yeah. He kind of gives a sign that he's fine. But even I was starting to think, is Bucky going back to his old ways? Is this a trick from Zemo? I do not trust Zemo at all. And by the end of this episode, he's still with them. And there were times where I was thinking to myself, I don't trust Zemo. Zemo is going to betray them. It might not be in this episode, but sometime down the road, Zemo is going to screw them over. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I'm not trusting this guy at all. So before, when they get to this woman, they have this conversation, and then Sam's phone rings, and even I was going, oh crap, this is gonna screw up everything. And when he was talking on the phone, trying to get his sister to like not give anything away about who they are or what they're doing. Well, even though she doesn't know what they're doing, she thinks like, what the hell? But she says Sam, and that blows their cover away. That because Sam was also under a different alias. He was pretending to be somebody else. And so shit goes to hell. And they eventually do escape, but someone seems to be saving their asses while they're saving their own asses. Somebody from the shadows seems to be protecting them also. It turns out to be Sharon Carter. Sharon, who has been on the run since Civil War because she helped break Steve and Sam and Bucky out of prison and gave them their weapons and stuff to defend themselves. Sharon has been on the run all this time, and nobody's helped her, man. And that kind of makes me think, like, man, why didn't Steve at least do something to help Sharon? He at least knew that Sharon was somewhere out there after Civil War, so why didn't he reach out to her and try to help her? Or maybe he did, and I don't know. That's not the indication Sharon gave, so I'm not going to presume that Steve did. Steve is just like, Sharon, I'm more interested in Peggy anyways. Maybe. So yeah, we get some badass fighting moments with Sharon in this episode. I gotta say, man, she was badass in Civil War and Winter Soldier also. But this episode where she's fighting on her own while Steve, Bucky, and Zemo are inside that place to find out more information, because she helps them find this place, this hidden place, where they can learn more about the serum, right? And when they get there, they meet the man who recreated the super soldier serum, but in a more easier way, where he didn't need to have these big machines and stuff like that, bulky machines. That's how he put it, to recreate the serum. But the power broker, who we don't meet in this episode, they keep talking about this power broker. So I'm going to guess the power broker is going to be someone very important, and maybe somebody that we know. Maybe not. Maybe it's going to turn out to be somebody new entirely. But the way they're setting it up feels like we're going to be seeing a familiar face. I don't know. That's just my instinct telling me. But then again, everybody, let's remember Mephisto, right? In WandaVision, that was the big theory in WandaVision. And Mephisto did not show up at all. So this theory of mine could be wrong. But there's already some theories going around that, not Baron Zemo. What was Toby? What was the character's name? The computer character. He was in Winter Soldier. And Zola, a lot of people think Zola could still be around. After all, he's not even, his body's dead, but his mind was put into a computer. Who says, if he's in the computer, he could be anywhere in the internet. I'm just saying that's a possibility. Maybe the Red Skull is alive. How crazy would it be if the Red Skull came back? They did mention the Red Skull in this episode, so I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there. I haven't heard the Red Skull theory, but the Zola theory, that it could be Zola being the power broker, that's a theory I did hear. And that could be a most likely scenario. But let's remember, the Red Skull is out there somewhere. Remember, at the end of Infinity War, once the Soul Stone is taken, he is able to get out of that place that he was trapped in. So, don't be surprised if the Red Skull one day shows up. If not in this show, one day he could show up one day. So I really like the stuff with Bucky, Sam teaming up with Zemo. I thought Bucky and Sam's interaction again were fun. Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie are so great in this show together. Watching them, they're back and forth, they're bickering. And then Daniel Bruhl as Zemo, he was so fantastic, man. I really like Zemo in Captain America: Civil War, and I think he is eating the scenery in every scene that he's in. He loves being back as this character, you can tell. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Daniel Bruhl hates this character. I don't think he would have returned if he didn't like playing this role. I think he loves it, and I think he's going to love it even more because his character is already being more fleshed out than he already was in Civil War. And he was really good in Civil War. I really liked his character. I think his villain is one of the most underrated characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because he was to me, that was like, wow, this is a guy who is determined. He has a really good motivation. His family was killed and he wants to tear this team apart. And now we're learning more about him. Apparently he did do more research on Hydra, I guess before his family died, because he says, oh, I've been doing research on Hydra for years. But that would indicate that either he was doing it in the 5 years that he was in prison, because Infinity War only happens a year after. Oh no, Civil War happens a year after Age of Ultron, which means he would have to be studying Hydra even before Sokovia happened. That's my indication. So I mean, yeah, he could have been a history buff, someone who was interested in World War II and stuff like that, and maybe did study up Hydra a lot. Um, or he misspoke a little bit, and instead of years he's been learning about Hydra, he was learning about them for a year. I don't know. But yeah, there was a moment where Zemo looked like he was about to escape, but he doesn't. He actually sticks around still to help them out. Sam says to Sharon, "Hey, why don't you come back with us to America?" He did promise that he'll try to get a pardon for her. But until that happens, she says, "Nah, it's better I stay here." But it looks like she is working for somebody. There was a woman that she went up to in a car, and she says, "Look, the situation is getting more crazier here." So it makes me wonder who Sharon was talking to in that car, and who's that is going to be connected to. Of course, we'll see Sharon again because she's going to be a major part of this season. They wouldn't have given her a Disney Legends video on the Marvel Studio Legends if she wasn't going to play a big part. So we'll have to wait and see. So Sam and Bucky get to this place with Zemo, and they're about to go into this building. Bucky hesitates and says, "Go inside. I'll meet up with you guys." And we see that there's these. I'm gonna guess they were tracking devices or something. I don't know. And he starts looking all over the place and finds like one or two more. And when he goes into this alleyway, he says, "Okay, I know you're here, so come out. I know you dropped these, so come out." And I'm like wondering, where is this going, man? What are they setting up here? And the camera pans one way, pans another, and that usually that's an old trope that someone's gonna show up on the other side eventually, on the other side of the camera when it pans back. So when it pans back, I'm like wondering, like, who is this? What are they doing? Who are we being introduced to? And then Ayo shows up, the Wakandan. She was like T'Challa's bodyguard. She shows up, and I'm like, oh shit, that's right. If Wakanda finds out that Zemo's escaped, there's gonna be some problem on the Wakanda angle of this all, and maybe T'Challa sent Ayo to come and kill Zemo. That's the best guess that I have, but that was a role. That was someone that I wasn't expecting anybody from Wakanda to play a role in this show, and it looks like we don't know how big her role's going to be, but it looks like we got a Wakandan in this episode, and hopefully we get a more clear picture of what she's doing here. And if T'Challa sent her or not. Maybe he heard that Zemo was broken out of prison and is like, we got to get this guy back. Will they give us any information on T'Challa? Because we know Chadwick Boseman passed away last year. Will they say anything of his whereabouts? Or are they going to just leave it alone? Because some of this show was filmed before the pandemic, which means Chadwick Boseman was alive during that time. And then there was some of it was filmed after the pandemic. So did they film this after or before? That will be the interesting thing. And if they did film it after, maybe this is going to be their way of explaining where T'Challa is in the MCU, what's going on with Wakanda in the MCU. Maybe not. Maybe they're just going to leave it out. Maybe they didn't know this was before they knew if Chadwick Boseman was alive or not, so they didn't know. Maybe this is just what it was going to be. Yeah, it will be interesting to see what they are going to use AO for to I think it's just going to be a simple, like, we learned that Zemo was out of prison and I was sent to come and bring him back. So to put him back in prison. So that's what I think it's going to be. So we'll see what happens. And with that being said, guys, I hope you like this video. Please comment below and tell me what you thought. Like the video because it helps with the algorithm in the whole YouTube landscape, as well as commenting. Commenting also helps a lot. So tell me your thoughts on the episode. I'm always looking forward to seeing what other people thought. And with that being said, guys, until next week, that's it. Take care.